Heraclon Publishing presents Swap Club, Year 2. Written by Lauren Wise. Narrated by Alysa King. Dedication. For Max. This one's for you. Forward. Or, in case you're still wondering, disclaimer. This book, like its predecessor, is fiction. I learned from book 1 that people would like nothing more than for this to be a true story. There are two ways for me to view this. 1, people are so struck by the authenticity of my writing that they cannot imagine that I could have made this up. Or 2, people have such low estimations for my capacity to imagine that they assume it had to be based on true events. Either way, I choose to view it as a compliment, because I did make it up. The characters in this story are fictitious. Nothing in these pages are based on true events. Just to reiterate, this book is not about me. But it is about you. Let me help you remember an old flame or a lost love, maybe even a cute crush who sat next to you in science class, and hopefully stroke some of that desire. So sit back, take your clothes off, and enjoy. Unless you're on an airplane, in which case, get a blanket and make sure your seatbelt is visible. Lauren Wise. Prologue. My life is picture perfect. Just creep my Instagram, and you'll see for yourself. Embedded in a checkerboard inlay of pictures, you'll find posts of my ideal nuclear family of 4, all of us smiling, at the camp buses, barbecues, and vacations, #family-feels. The odd selfie of my daughter Hallie and me, #moms and daughters. My son Michael with his hands in the air, celebrating his winning goal at hockey, #hockeymom. And several pictures of my husband Ryan and me, #TBT, #this guy, #LOML. See? Picture perfect. I couldn't be happier. And I'm making all kinds of new friends too. Like, for example, the gorgeous but slightly tipsy Roxy sitting next to me. I can feel a lifelong friendship brewing.
Fuck me. Val? Is it? Your life is frickin' amazing.
Roxy belted out as she scratched her head. Yeah, so we do this every second Saturday of the month, I explained.
Let me get this shit straight. Your husband lets some guy fuck your brains out once a month? And you let him go screw some fucking broad too?
Roxy scratched the other side of her head.
And you pay a membership fee? Damn, I'm in the wrong business.
Yep, I'm pretty lucky. I leaned against the concrete wall. I was chilly, so I tugged my skirt down a bit more. It's been a crazy couple years.
Girl, you have been doing this for years?
Roxy stuck her finger in her ear. I guess it was itchy too. Well, a year and a half to be exact. I looked around. Not every swap ends like this.
Tell me more, woman. Tell me about a swap.
Roxy's black pantyhose were ripped to shreds. I couldn't tell if it was on purpose or not. Who knew these days? Well, the nights typically start with me waiting around my house alone around 8 for the doorbell to ring. I'm usually pretty anxious. You never know who's going to show up, given how tiny Montreal is. The majority of the mystery men ringing my doorbell, once a month for our 3 hours of sex-filled fun, are likely an old high school boy toy, an ex-boyfriend, or a token awkward encounter.
And your husband?
Roxy managed to get out of her ear whatever was plaguing her.
Where's he at when you're letting some strange man into your house?
She asked, while flicking away the germy gob stuck to her 3-inch nail. He's standing on some strange woman's porch, about to ring her doorbell, while her husband is out on some other strange woman's porch.
Let me get this motherfucker straight. You're at home waiting for someone to screw you while your husband is going to screw some other guy's wife while her husband is out screwing someone else's wife? And you guys pay money to do this?
Yeah, pretty much. I thought about how it sounded. Like I had done over and over in my head, in case I ever had to explain it to my mother, who was usually the one watching my kids, while my husband and I were gallivanting in bed with other married couples, adding parts about the importance of spicing up your sex life and how I've separated the sex and my marriage into special storage boxes like what you would see at a Container Store. My life was perfect, right?
Tell me more. I'm interested.
Roxy's eyes were fading.
Tell me about the sex.
Well, usually drinks help to get my nerves to settle.
Oh, I love drinking.
I surveyed the men in uniforms looking up from their computers, trying to see what all the commotion was. Ladies, please, keep it down. A large man with gray hair and glasses quickly warned us. Anyway, I continued in a quieter voice, once I have the drinks going and we're more comfortable, most of the time I lean in for a kiss. You know, just to let him know I'm good to go. Then, once the pre-sex makeout session is getting hot and heavy, I normally suggest we make our way to the bedroom. Some guys like to stay downstairs on the couch in the living room, some like the bed. I kind of like to go with the flow, and I'm usually the instigator with the removal of clothes. I generally take their clothes off first, their shirt, their pants, then their boxers. I like it when they pull my clothes off too. I'm really not shy anymore about that stuff. I used to be more self-conscious, but now I'm used to being naked in front of strange men. I know that sounds weird. I looked over to make sure we weren't attracting notice again before continuing. I realized after so many swaps that I really love giving and receiving oral. I'm actually pretty good at it. I once made a guy come in under 5 minutes. I even made this one guy come with just a 3-minute hand job. I've also figured out that if I position myself properly when I'm on the top, I can actually get my clit stimulated enough for mind-blowing orgasms that last crazy long. Oh yeah, and my nipples are pretty sensitive too. I never knew that a suck or a nibble while having sex could actually increase the intensity of the experience. Did you? I had gotten so lost in my own fog that I hadn't realized that Roxy had fallen asleep, mouth open and snoring. I could see the silver cap on the one molar she had left in her mouth. Valerie Matthews? The words echoed against the concrete. Okay, so maybe my life isn't a perfect Instagram story? I thought as I examined my whereabouts. Yes, here! I called out. My legs were stuck to the vinyl chair. You're free to go. Your husband has come to collect you. The officer looked over at my hooker friend Roxy, who was still snoring. Okay, so maybe there were some bumps in the road this year, and maybe I'm stretching the truth just a little. What are a few white lies here and there? This wasn't how I pictured year 2. Last year at this time, I was relishing the joy and fulfillment Swap Club was bringing me. I was in multiple orgasm, dancing my way down a grocery aisle, ass-licking ain't so bad heaven. I sat there frozen, not sure if it was because my ass was stuck to the vinyl chair, or I was afraid of Ryan, who was waiting for me outside the holding area. I wasn't exactly sure if Ryan even had the desire to hear how the hell I ended up detained by the Montreal police. If he did, then maybe I should leave out the part where I got into a complete stranger's car and was driven to a remote warehouse in the middle of Griffintown. Yeah, probably not a good idea, now that I thought about my night. My name is Valerie Matthews, swinger, proud mother of 2, finally released from police station number 12. I've only slept with men I've been married to. How many women can make that claim? Elizabeth Taylor, 8 marriages, 7 husbands, 7 divorces. Chapter 1. This Ain't No Never Neverland. I should probably catch you up on my not-so-perfect life. My ass was freezing to the cold leather seat in my husband Ryan's car. We both sat in silence. We were parked outside Celeste's. That's not her real name. Ryan's not his real name either. My name isn't even Val. But if I told you my real name, I'd be in even more trouble than I am already. Celeste is the innovative madam and orchestrator of Swap Club. We had just finished our 1-year contract for Swap Club. That's right, contract. Swap Club has rules, although I had already broken many of them. Ryan and I thought we were meeting Celeste for an exit interview. Turned out it was a re-entry interview. Ryan and I left and sat in our car outside, both of us dumbstruck. 1 year of Swap Club had been a wild journey, but we seemed to have managed to make it out unscathed. Kinda. But we had never contemplated a year 2. Who knew what that would do to us? The new contract was pinched between my thumb and my fingers in my giant wool glove. Earth to Ryan. What? Ryan responded finally, breaking out of whatever spell had been cast upon him. You're acting like I knew about renewing our contract. I had no clue. I thought we were just going to say our goodbyes and thank yous. I turned in my seat to look at Ryan, but his hazel gaze was fixated through our windshield. Ryan? Here we were in our typical standoff, only normally this type of silent treatment had to do with my big mouth at some corporate dinner party. I don't know what we should do, Ryan finally responded. We don't have to do it again, Ryan, I said, but I wanted to. I wanted to so badly. Our sex life used to be 6 minutes once a month, if we were lucky. After 1 year of Swap Club, Ryan and I weren't breaking any records, but we were connecting with each other more frequently. Not to mention, I'm guaranteed 3 hours a month with someone else's husband. Should I just be honest? Tell Ryan that I want to keep screwing other men and vice versa? I didn't even think there would be an option to renew. After all, the broken rules, lies, and deception, I hadn't even entertained the idea that Celeste would let us back for another year. Now I had a renewal contract in my hand. The idea of passing this up was an impossibility. I had to convince him. But before I got the chance, Ryan shifted to look at me. Let's do it. And this time, no messing around. Stick to the rules, no bullshit. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I started to become skeptical of his motivation. Could he read my mind? Was my husband telepathic? Telepathetic? I felt like there was a huge neon sign hanging over my head with arrows pointing down at me. Horny housewife. Are you sure? I asked, the same way I offered to pay for lunch with my mother when she grabs the bill. Didn't you have a good time? Ryan asked. I did. I had a great time. But last year I had to convince you to join Swap Club for me. And this time, you're ready to sign without any second thoughts? Give me that. Ryan snatched the contract out of my hands, opened the glove compartment, and pulled out a pen. That was last year. We're signing? Right now? I was shocked, relieved, and fucking thrilled. Ryan signed his name and then passed the pen and the contract back to me. I signed my name, and then Ryan opened his car door. He ran up Celeste's walkway and stuck the contract in her mailbox. As we pulled away from the curb, I flipped over to the classic rewind channel on Sirius XM, and we were treated to the eternally happy double clap of Jay Giles and his band reminiscing about his homeroom centerfold. The song had me right back in the dining hall at summer camp when I was 12 years old. The jukebox would blast the song for 400 campers, smashing their hands down on the table every time Jay Giles belted out, "My blood runs cold." 4 days later, I ate lunch with my on and off again longtime friend Melissa, and she diagnosed me with stuck song syndrome. I wasn't so sure about her diagnosis. For me, it was a classic case of nostalgia that tapped into my deep-rooted neural tapestry of memories connected with music from sleepaway camp. Yet the joy Mr. Giles had once provided was slowly turning into madness as I could not get the damn hook out of my head. Na 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 na. A week later, I was still humming to the beat doing mom errands. Mom memory has just been through my house, putting away laundry. Angel is a... And even as I shampooed my hair the morning, Ryan and I had sex in the shower. Yes, I did just say sex in the shower with Ryan. Not sex after my shower or before my shower with Ryan. Sex in the shower with Ryan. A sure sign swap club had done us some good. I had been rinsing the conditioner out of my hair when Ryan tapped on the bathroom door. It was 8:30 in the morning, and typically Ryan would have been already at work. That meant Ryan was choosing to play with me in the shower instead of sitting at his desk and playing CFO. It seemed Ryan's sex drive had kicked into high gear. "The water's warm," I said as I splashed some water at his face and held the glass door open for him. He was semi-erect, a pure form of flattery, considering all I had done thus far was let him see my naked body. Ryan stepped into the shower and pressed my body against the wet tiles. They were cold against my spine. I flinched at first, but then my back warmed them up pretty quickly. We kissed as the shower poured over our bodies, keeping us cozy in a blanket of water. I felt his firm penis between my legs, not yet inside me, just rubbing against my soapy bits. Ryan took my breast into his hand and licked my nipple. Less self-conscious about the shape, firmness, and size of my breasts, it seemed that my newfound comfort with my physique had granted Ryan access to more of my body, even my saggy-ish mom boobs. I lowered myself to sit on the marble bench, but not before I pushed aside an array of shampoo bottles. We had shampoos for color-treated hair, thinning hair, dry hair, dandruff, oily hair, and conditioning treatments for unruly hair, frizzy hair, and split ends. You would think we shared our shower with a bunk of 14-year-old girls or a quality control rep for Unilever. Half the bottles were empty, and half the bottles were over a year old. Most of the bottles had just become a part of the shower furniture, and I felt too attached to throw them out. My brain had wandered off as it did so often. It was as though I couldn't help it. Last year, I blamed my boring sex life on my inability to focus, but now I was convinced that my brain was incapable of staying in the moment. I had to get my mind out of the shampoo aisle and back into the hot sex scene I was in. I squeezed my eyes shut and focused on the thrill of having shower sex with Ryan, that he'd taken time to be with me over his job, and how amazing Swap Club was in our life. I sat down, wincing once again at the cold against my bare skin. Ryan came closer, the shower hitting him from behind. I took him into my mouth and began to give him head. "I'm gonna fall down," Ryan laughed as his legs twitched with every pull from my mouth. "So?" I grinned, my hand rubbing his length. My fingers and lips worked simultaneously, Ryan's knees buckling slightly. I looked up at him. His eyes were closed in pleasure, his head tilted back slightly. The shower had become so steamy that I could see the ceiling starting to drip. Could that cause damage to the paint? Would it peel? Would there be mold? Wait, was that mold? "My memory has just been sold." "Val?" Ryan, who sometimes could read me so well, felt my mind was preoccupied. The rhythm at which I was rubbing his penis had slowed down significantly, and my mouth was barely covering his shaft. "Focus, Val, focus." "Sorry." I pepped up and took the extra moisturizing Pantene conditioner to lube up my hands. I had to up the ante to make up for my mind wandering off. Again. I turned Ryan around and placed his hands against the wall to secure him. "What are you doing?" Ryan asked as I spread his legs with my lathered hands. "Just close your eyes and enjoy." I looked back up at the dripping ceiling. We had to wrap this shower up, or else the hot water tank would be empty before Ryan had his happy ending. I spread his cheeks and began to rub his penis from between his legs, while my other hand rubbed the area between his balls and his butthole. "Oh, my Val, where did you—" Ryan couldn't finish his sentence. His forehead stuck right against the dripping tiles, one hand bracing himself and the other dangling by his side, his fingertips turning into the California raisins. My hands were busy working in unison, rubbing him from behind. Ryan's knees were shaking. "My angel is the centerfold." "Stop! Stop!" Ryan stopped my hands, caught his breath, and then shut off the water. "What's wrong?" I was 18% sure the song was in my head. I thought he wasn't enjoying himself. I thought it was feeling good. I guess not all guys like ass play. Ryan opened the shower door. Our bathroom was hazy, and I felt like a pork dumpling inside a bamboo steamer. Ryan grabbed his towel, wiped himself down, and then wrapped me up in it. "Come." Ryan led me out of the steamed-up shower stall and into our room where he laid me down on the bed. He opened the towel and got on top of me. I felt chilled as the air touched my skin. I used Ryan's body to warm up. Ryan looked into my eyes as he kissed me deeply and then slipped inside me. I held him close. I wanted the body heat as much as I wanted him in me. It was a refreshing change to start our day with sex rather than end it. My mind wanted to check the time, but I fought the urge. My mind wanted to think about what to make for dinner, and if I had remembered to set the dishwasher last night before bed. I kept on fighting the urge to be anywhere but here, in bed, having wet after-shower sex with Ryan at... Wait, what time was it? My damp hair hung down over my face as I rolled myself on top of Ryan. He pulled my hair back with his hands as I moved my hips, rotating them in a smooth and steady gyration. Ryan's hands held firm on my hair, increasing the pressure of my lips against his. I was a sucker for a good kiss. I could feel his grip on my hair tighten as we climaxed and then completely let go. My cold hair sent chills up my back. "It's 9:45. You're beyond late for work." I checked the time. I couldn't help myself. "I know," Ryan said as he got out of bed. "Where the hell did you learn that trick?" Ryan smiled at me. I literally thought my head was going to explode. "I don't remember," I smiled back. It was a pretty crazy year. I watched Ryan get ready for work. We had come a long way. Or maybe I should say he had come a long way. "Are you excited for another year of Swap Club?" I asked him as he pulled a pair of socks out of his drawer. "I'm not gonna lie. I'm always a bit nervous about our secret. But I like our vice. And I like our sex life much better than I did a year ago. Not to mention, my blood pressure is down, and you just fondled my perineum in the shower." "You're crediting Swap Club for the results you got for your annual physical?" I was just thinking out loud. Ryan sat on the side of our bed, putting on his socks. "I just want to make sure it's what you want. Again." "Oh, if you meant for my birthday, then no." Ryan looked at me as he placed his sweater over his head and adjusted his shirt collar. "What do you mean, no?" "This doesn't count as my birthday present this year." I smiled and then fiddled with my diamond tennis bracelet, which hadn't left my wrist in over a year. "Of course not." Ryan grabbed his wallet and keys and kissed me on the forehead. "Babe, it's almost your 41st. He made his way to the door. "El Taqueria Friday night?" He winked at me. I took my pillow and whipped it at Ryan's head. "I'll kill you." Kidding. I made a reservation for 8 at Gibby's. And then he disappeared out the door. "Wait!" I called after him. Ryan peeked his head back into our room and looked at me with his eyebrows raised slightly. "What's a perineum?" Ryan left me in bed, and I heard him laughing all the way down the stairs. 41 was going to be awesome. I wasn't even annoyed that we were having another one of my birthday dinners with Melissa, Jeff, Tanya, Harry, Helen, and Steve, where I'd have to sit and listen to their banal chatter about their problems. I stared out the window, and I wasn't bothered by the frost covering it, or the layer of snow coating the dried-out branches of our tree. I, Valerie Matthews, was happy. And it wasn't even summer. The sound of the doorbell snapped me back to reality. I curiously made my way downstairs. It was probably Ryan, forgetting his salad in the fridge, his snow brush, his cell phone, or any of the other several items he kept with him on a daily basis. I looked out the peephole, just to be sure it was Ryan. After all, I was completely naked. And then my heart managed to fall all the way down to my sheepskin Ugg slippers. Dear God, please give me the strength to tell Tyler to leave and never come back. I promise I will clean out all the empty bottles of shampoo from my shower stall. Na, 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 angel is my centerfold. Amen? And that's why they call them crushes. If they were easy, they'd call him something else. Jim Baker, 16 Candles. Chapter 2, The Horseshoe That Brings No Luck. Swap number 1, January 10th, 2015. It had been over a month since that brisk November evening when I left Tyler standing alone in the street. Just a glimpse at his eyes through the peephole brought me back to the infatuation days when he was the gorgeous teacher's assistant from my Art of Diplomacy class when I was at McGill. Never in a million years had I thought Tyler would be brought back into my life via our local swingers club. Avoiding eye contact at all costs was crucial, I thought as I opened the door. I couldn't help myself. And I liked my shower full of empty shampoo bottles anyway. "What are you doing here?" I asked as I hid behind my half-open front door, grabbing at Michael's bomber jacket hanging just at arm's length. I covered myself, just barely, and let Tyler in. I didn't want anyone to see him at my doorstep. "I've been waiting for your husband to leave." "Waiting? How long have you been out there?" I tied my hair into a wet knot, keeping my hands busy just to be safe, in case a crazy urge overtook me to grab Tyler and kiss him. "Well, he usually leaves by 8, so I guess I've been waiting 2 hours?" I finished his sentence. "Yeah, I guess it's been 2 hours." "Why? And how do you know he leaves at 8 most days?" I was 1/4 creeped out, 2/4 flattered, and 1/4 overcome with crazy urges. "Why are you here, Tyler?" "I had to see you. I fucking miss you." Tyler took a step closer, and I lost the battle with my eyeballs. I couldn't control the need to see his crystal blues that were more stunning than I had remembered. He had scruff on his face, and he looked sexily unkempt. "You can't do this. What about your wife? I have a husband." I felt a pang of guilt tremble through my stomach. "We're separated, and I still can't stop thinking about you." I had to stay strong. I had to keep in the forefront of my mind how important it was for me to keep my focus on working on my marriage to Ryan. I just had morning shower sex while our kids were at school. This was no time for my brain to turn to mush and bring Tyler into the mix again. But damn, those eyes, his square shoulders, and fuck, the spot below his ear on his neck that I could still taste. And I couldn't stop looking at those lips that had made me come over and over again just a few months ago. Those lips that always seemed to mouth the words I needed to hear when I was at my lowest. Those lips that send shockwaves from my lips all the way down my spine. "Val, I just needed to see you, even for a few minutes." Tyler turned toward the front door. "I can see that you're uncomfortable. I'm sorry to be selfish. I'll go." I watched as Tyler walked out my front door, The willpower to let him go again was a challenge. I kept reminding myself that I was naked and I had made my choice. I had just found some balance in my marriage. A precarious balance, but still a balance that led to shower sex and Ryan's perennial or periodontist or whatever it's called on a weekday morning. Val, I thought in my most assertive inner voice, stay inside and shut the door. Tyler! I yelled from my front porch. Note to self, I need to work on my assertive voice. But he didn't hear me. Patricio, our landscaper, powered on his snowblower just in time. Surely it was a sign from a higher power that I needed to keep myself in line, and only screw members in our organized sex club. Ex-members such as Tyler are the forbidden fruit. As I generally try to abide by signs from a higher power, I closed the door and checked the time. It was 10:30. Oh, shit! I'm late! I ran up the stairs to get ready. I was supposed to be at brunch with my mother in 30 minutes, which meant my mother had already been waiting for me for 15 minutes. What a morning I was having! Delayed by shower sex, and Tyler showing up at my door. I threw on the blue jeans slung over the edge of my laundry basket, the first shirt I could grab from my closet, and ran out the door with my hair in a wet bun. My mother was going to have a field day with me. You should wear makeup. You dress like a schlump. Why is your hair wet at lunchtime? I was meeting her at Nick's, the only restaurant my mother referred to by the location. I'll meet you on Green Avenue. Not, I'll meet you at Nick's. I rushed like crazy, and with help from the parking gods, I was in Nick's by 10:52. But she wasn't there yet. My perpetually early mother, the one who actually lives in Montreal but adheres to Atlantic Standard Time, was late. I only realized when I arrived that my mother hadn't sent me her usual 10 texts asking me my ETA. It was 10:55, and Carol Matthews was not already sipping coffee from a mug stained with her red lipstick. I pulled out my phone and checked my messages, but the only alert shining on my home screen was a reminder to buy paper towels, detergent, and creamer. Your mom isn't here yet? The hostess asked. Even this stranger knew that Carol Matthews was always here before me. No, I guess she's on her way. I followed the hostess to a booth and pulled out my phone to check again. I was starting to think I got the days mixed up. Maybe I was supposed to meet my mom tomorrow. I checked my messages. Nope, it was definitely today. I called her. Mom, where are you? I'm parking. I'll be there in a second. My eyes were glued to the door. For once in my life, my mother had me worried. A few moments passed, and there she was. Like a Hollywood movie star, Carol Matthews turned every head as she walked up to the booth. Her red lips, Chanel sunglasses, and indigo blue fur coat looked like perfection on her. If I dressed like that, I would have looked like a cracked-out cross-dressing Fraggle. What happened? I was legitimately worried. I had an appointment. Then I sat in a stupid amount of traffic. All the snowbanks are turning the roads into one lane everywhere. Like my new coat, blue is having such a moment right now. Yeah, I never knew chinchillas came in blue raspberry. An appointment for what? Nothing. For what? She was being elusive, and it was frustrating me. It's nothing. And then she looked me over with her eyes. You look like a cowboy. I looked down at my denim shirt and jeans. My mom was right. I looked like John Wayne. Ugh, leave it to her to comment. All I was missing was the chewing tobacco and horse shit. I had to reset the conversation to her whereabouts. Why are you not telling me where you were, Mom? I'm not telling you. So, what was it for? None of your business, Val. Which could only mean my mother just had Botox, a reading with her fortune teller Sapphire, whom she'd promised she would never go back to again, or had just been involved in a hit and run and ran. Why are you so secretive? My mom motioned to the waitress for a coffee. You never told me that Melissa's brother Sam and his wife are separated. You had to give it to her. My mom knew how to deflect. I just bumped into their mother Alice, and she told me. That's terrible. I couldn't look my mother in the eye because she might figure out I'd swallowed Sam's load along with a whole slew of other pent-up members from our club last year. Not to mention, that had been the catalyst for months of confusion last year, when my best friend Melissa wouldn't talk to me. Turned out, Melissa saw me leaving Tyler's house after our swap. Of course, my best friend had to see the one time I had to leave Ryan at home, and I had to go to the address Celeste texted me. That resulted in my spilling the beans to Melissa about Swap Club, in a dingy bowling alley bathroom. I wondered, to this day, if I should have just told her I'd slept with her brother Sam in our Swap Club and just been done with it. She heard that they were cheating on each other. It's hardly cheating if you're members of a consensual swingers club, I retorted, in my head, of course. I started shifting in the booth. The pleather seat I was sitting on had giant tears, barely holding the foam cushion inside. I imagined the rips in the bench were a consequence of Nick's being a popular place for mother and daughter lunches. The wear and tear of the cushions was a direct connection with the anxiety and stress emitted by said daughters shifting their asses in the seat hastily while dodging their mother's interrogations. The waitress placed our coffees down. Lily, I'll have 2 poached eggs and rye toast. No butter, my mom said. I looked up at Lily, grateful for her impeccable timing. I'll have the same. I looked out the window as my mom took a sip from her coffee, her red lips left behind on the mug as anticipated when she lowered it down. All I could think of was Tyler and how easily gossip had made its way around our city. It very well could have been me people were chatting about. The guy was in my frickin' house less than an hour ago. You know, Mom, sex is sex. Love is love. Problems arise when the two get confused. I kept my eyes down while hers penetrated my forehead. I could feel the backlash of a long-winded commentary about the statistical demise of the institution of marriage and how that is to be blamed on my generation's inability to stay committed and loyal. How she and my late father, may he rest in peace, understood that marriage took work and gumption. I was waiting for her lecture on relationships and family being thrown away and replaced with one-night stands and naked selfies. Where have the days gone when proper courtships included sipping milkshakes at the local Woolworths? Maybe you're right, Valerie. Maybe women your age would be happier if both sex and the love in their relationships felt good. Wait, what? I nearly spat my coffee all over her. Lily, my mom called over her shoulder, the food must be ready. Lily nodded at her as she swiftly pulled the plates from the prep counter. Carol Matthews's intuition was always right, even when it came to the readiness of her poached eggs. Did my mother just agree with some cockamamie theory I have about love and sex? Did she get what I was saying? I didn't know what to do with myself, so I did what I do most of the time I eat lunch with my mother. I stared at her in silence as she meticulously ate her poached eggs, sipped her coffee, and matched her lipstick prints perfectly each time she took a sip. I smiled at her, but mostly to myself. Not because she had mastered the art of making runny eggs look classy, but because she had unknowingly signed my permission slip for renewing Swap Club for another year. A few nights later, our house was abnormally calm. The kids were finally back to their after-school routines since the Christmas holidays. Hallie, still only halfway into first grade, saw homework as a reward from her teachers, not the bane of her existence that Michael did. She didn't even want my help, only needed my signature, which she already had managed to copy remarkably well on the corner of the page. Her ability to forge my signature at 7 years old was frightening. Or cool. Depends on how you look at it, I guess. Hallie was becoming more and more like my sister Janet. She was independent, bright, and confident at such a young age. I could only hope that she would use those traits to fight famine, make peace in the Middle East, or at the very least, save the world. My expectations were reasonable. We had a nice dinner, and no one complained that my lasagna had too many burned, inedible ends. When we were done eating, the kids, with very little pushback, helped clear the table, and Ryan loaded the dishwasher while I watched in utter disbelief. After dinner, Ryan was lying in the living room with Michael, watching Star Trek, taking great delight in sharing his love of the Klingons with his son. Everyone was content, and no one needed me. The dishes were in the dishwasher, clothes from the hamper folded and put away, and school lunches were prepared for the next day. I was Supermom. Is this what life is like when everything is perfect? It seemed like my marriage was slowly getting back on track. My sex life was significantly improved, and my kids hadn't been complete assholes for the last 3 days. Could it be that my sex club membership was to thank? If my life, after year 1, was going this well, I couldn't even fathom what life would be like after year 2. Maybe I should buy a lottery ticket. On Friday, I did. I did not win the lottery. I did, however, win Mother of the Year by having Hallie's teacher's assistant, Katie, babysit for us while we went out to finally celebrate my belated 41st birthday. Katie was doing her stage at Hallie's school while completing her degree at McGill in education. She was a student very much in need of cash and had sent out an email to Hallie's class to mention her availability as a babysitter or au pair. As we were showing Katie around the house, giving her the spiel about emergency numbers and where the ice cream lived, Ryan came into the kitchen with his phone in his hand. "Steve caught a bug. He and Helen can't make it." To be completely honest, and I hate to sound like a complete asshole, but I was relieved. It had taken years for me to actually admit to myself that I think my friend Helen's husband, Steve, is a dick. Steve never takes his shoes off when he comes into my house. He never looks at the waiters when he orders food. He never says thank you to people that hold the door for him. And frankly, I won't be missing making conversation with him at my birthday dinner about the state of Montreal's roads or listening to how he could fix the corruption in Quebec by making 1 or 72 phone calls. On our way to the restaurant, my phone buzzed with a message from Tanya.
"Can't make it. Sitter flaked on us."
"Looks like we'll only be 4 tonight." I rolled my eyes at the emoji sad face. I couldn't help but feel let down by my friends. I know shit comes up. Heck, I'm the one who ran out on them at my birthday dinner last year, when I was having my midlife 40th birthday at a Mexican restaurant meltdown. This year, thankfully, my birthday dinner was at Gibby's, a quaint steakhouse in Old Montreal, a few blocks away from the water. It's a cozy spot, classy but not too pretentious, seeing as the waitresses have to wear 19th century brown frilly aprons and bonnets. I used to go there for special occasions with my grandparents. Compared to last year's spot, I was happy to trade in the taquitos and salsa for a delicious steak and a Monte Carlo potato. Ryan and I showed up on time, and the hostess, dressed like a butter-churning farmer's daughter, greeted us. "I'm so sorry. It looks like half our party won't be making it." I frowned as I explained the situation to the hostess. "Okay, if you can wait to the side, I'll have your table changed." She made her way into the maze of tables lining the historic stone walls, probably thinking of all the people who had called for reservations today and were told they couldn't be accommodated. Within a couple of minutes, the hostess returned and motioned for us to follow her to a table of 4, forcing a smile as she handed us our menus. The busboys instantly placed pickles, coleslaw, and a board with a hot, fresh loaf of bread on the table. Your waiter, Steph, will be with you in a moment. And with another forced smile, the hostess walked away, glancing at the long, empty table for 8 across the room. Wow, she seemed annoyed, I said to Ryan as he was checking his phone. I don't blame her. The reservation was made last month. It's shitty that people wait till the last minute to change their plans. Ryan directed his aggravation at my friends. I was going to remind Ryan that it wasn't really their fault, but the seasoned waiter Steph interrupted the defense I was beginning to mount in my head. Can I get you a drink while you wait? She looked at us through her vintage specs, and I wondered if that was part of the uniform or if she really wore 19th century eyewear. I answered right away. I'd love a glass of Pinot. My phone rang, interrupting my order. Grigio. My phone rang again. It said Jeff across the screen. Sorry. I answered my phone. Hey. I was cut off before I had the chance to say more. No worries. We understand. I hung up. I watched as Ryan's expression darkened. Melissa and Jeff can't make it? Ryan asked, knowing the answer. No, one of the kids is throwing a tantrum. I threw my phone into my purse and checked my watch. It was 8:07. Steph the waiter stared at us, her eyes magnified, and I could see her pupils. She swiftly removed the 2 extra wine glasses from the table. I'll have a Pinot Grigio as well, Ryan said to Steph quietly. I could see him trying to temper his reaction, but I knew what he was thinking. I couldn't even look him in the eye. I was mortified. My friends were a no-show, and I was reminded of the episode of Sex and the City when Carrie was stood up at Il Cantonori. I remember thinking while I watched between bites of wheat thins that my friends would never do that to me. Looks like I get to have you all to myself. Ryan half smiled, trying to cheer me up. But I couldn't help myself. I felt the tears well in my eyes. Goddamn black eyeliner on my bottom lid. I was one teardrop away from looking like Marilyn Manson. Don't cry, Valerie. I'm sorry. Ryan took his linen napkin and handed it to me. My black liner causing tear marks along my cheek were making him uncomfortable. Let's eat some pickles and drink some wine. And you can open this. Ryan placed an envelope in front of me. I wiped my cheek and then lifted the manila envelope off the table. I slid my finger along the tucked fold and pulled out a printed paper from inside. It was a gift certificate for a family photo session that I knew would sit on the pile where the other neglected papers lived in our kitchen and never get used. That's such a sweet idea, Ryan. I smiled, but then felt the ugly cry set in. My face contorted. My bottom lip went flat and stiff, and I could see by Ryan's expression that he was fearful. He shifted in his seat as his distaste for public displays of emotion switched from consoling to, God, will you stop? Please stop. I beg you, please stop crying, Val. Holy shit, you're killing me here. Check, please. Val, can you pull it together? Ryan was noticing the patrons and staff looking at our table. It's not so bad. We have each other. I smiled through my tears. You're right. I looked at Ryan as he got up and grabbed me another napkin from a nearby table. And he was right. I wasn't going to ruin our evening, and these hurt feelings would eventually pass. Nothing a medium-rare ribeye and pickles couldn't take care of. What was wrong with me that I wasn't thrilled to have a romantic dinner alone with my husband? Ryan and I didn't say much as we drove home. I was lost in my thoughts about how happy I thought I was about life in general, and how I was trying not to be sad about tonight. Had my marriage really improved as much as I was allowing myself to believe? Was Ryan thinking the same thing? At least you won't be puking blue all over the snow on our front lawn this year, Ryan quipped. Flashbacks of the giant Windex drinks I'd downed last year and then brought back up in front of our house reminded me of yet another thing I should be grateful for. No birthday hangover this year. 41 was looking promising. When we got home, I went straight upstairs, and Ryan dealt with Katie and getting the kids off to sleep. While I climbed into bed and flipped through the menu on Netflix, I landed on A Million Ways to Die in the West. I needed Seth MacFarlane to pull me out of my semi-rabbit hole. The ribeye and Monte Carlo potato had been able to do most of the job. I just needed a booster. About a half hour or so into the movie, Ryan walked into our room with a tray. Room service? Ryan placed the tray with popcorn in front of me and climbed into bed. You hate when I eat in bed. Are you being serious? Ryan took a handful of popcorn. Just for tonight. He winked and rolled his eyes when he saw Seth MacFarlane get peed on by a sheep. I smell an Oscar. By the next evening, I had blown off several calls and texts from Melissa, Tanya, and Helen. It was Saturday, and Swap Club Year 2 was minutes away from starting. And there was no way I was getting into 3 lengthy phone calls about why they couldn't have ditched their husbands and come to dinner. Had I known earlier, we could have just made it a girls' night. I wasn't going to let myself get worked up again. That I spent my birthday having birthday sex with Ryan, while Neil Patrick Harris took a shit inside a cowboy hat. I would deal with them tomorrow. Mike and Hallie were happy to be sleeping at their friends' houses. I'd strategically planned it a few days before, so that my mother, who had been feeling like she was coming down with the flu, wouldn't have to watch them or cancel on me if it turned out to be the flu after all. Outfit of choice: Aritzia black vegan leather pants, sheer cotton t-shirt, no bra. Yep, I said no bra. My nipples were slightly on display, and I was going with it. Lacy turquoise G-string and a spritz of Emporio Armani She perfume. I was ready for the first gentleman caller of the year to touch down on my sexually perverse soil. I turned to the side, examining my body in the front hall mirror. My ass was still high and tight, my breasts were still not as perky as I would have liked, but this was my body, and I had spent the past 12 months learning what it was capable of. I gotta go. How do I look? Asked a suave Ryan as he slid in front of me to check his teeth in the mirror. His hair had a little more salt and pepper framing his narrow face, but his hazel eyes were still luminous, like the day I met him under the camp stars. Where did you get that shirt? I ran my hand over the soft black collar. It's nice. You can wear it to my birthday dinner next year. I winked as I held the door to our foyer open. Val, I can see your boobs through your shirt. I gave him the Vulcan peace sign. Live long and prosper. Then I kissed him on the lips, leaving him with a hint of my hot pink gloss across his upper lip as I pushed him out our front door. See you later, Ryan. Love you. 7:56 p.m. And my nerves were nowhere near as intense as they'd been a year ago when I was about to let a complete stranger into my home and have sex with him for the first time. Although, in all fairness, my first swap ended up being an ex-boyfriend. My hands were slightly sweaty, but I figured it was more my 40-something hormones messing with my core temperature than my nerves. Some nights I would wake with my sweaty back sticking to our sheets, when only hours earlier my frozen body was practically cemented to Ryan's, trying to generate body heat while my teeth chattered. At the end of a big meal, I could find myself breaking into a full sweat, like I had done laps around the table, or jittering inside and out with icicles practically hanging from my nostrils. My body was changing, but thank God my hormones still had my sex drive at ferociously insatiable. I gave myself one last check in the mirror. My nipples front and center. I thought maybe it was a bit too much, and I started to head upstairs to grab a bra just as the doorbell rang. I took one more step up the stairs, thinking I had time to make a quick change, but stopped myself from leaving some poor guy in the cold for longer than need be. I caught my slutty self in the mirror right before opening the door, and then almost slammed it shut in the dumb bastard's face. Celeste had gifted me with another ex-boyfriend to kick off Swap Club Year 2, but he certainly wasn't welcome like Joe had been. Fuck, 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 fuck. Identity, Ari Klein. Association, ex-boyfriend circa 1990. Description, total dick. Reason for breakup, claiming I was a prude. Date dumped, eve of my 16th birthday. I remember the sinking feeling in my stomach the night he picked me up, over an hour late, for my pre-birthday dinner date. I sat waiting for him at the door, like a dog waiting for its owner to return. Every time a set of headlights turned onto our street, I perked up, thinking it was Ari. With each car that sped past our home, my ego deflated. The humiliation of it all worsened when my mother shook her head at me and told me that if a guy ever showed up late for a date with her, she'd tell him to screw himself and then slam the door in his face. "Where's your integrity, Val?" my mother berated me as I sat in the foyer. "This Ari Klein better have a good reason for making you wait like this. Over an hour. On your birthday. Boys these days don't know how to treat a lady. I wouldn't even answer the door if I were you." By then, just when I thought it couldn't get any more excruciating, my mother began hyping the alternative. A night with her and my father on the couch, watching any movie I wanted. Thankfully, just then I heard the motor outside. It was Ari, pulling up in his dad's gray Mazda 626. He didn't even get out. Oh, how nice. He doesn't even have the courtesy to run up to the door and apologize. My mother looked out the window just as Ari lit up a cigarette and waited for me in the car. Then, my dad piped in. "Aiming high, I see, Val. Tell that Klein boy he's not welcome in my house. Unless, of course, he wants to meet a real man to set him straight." They weren't wrong. They just didn't understand how being a teenager was simply not the same as it used to be. Not to mention, I'm sure he had a very reasonable explanation that I could at least pass on to my parents tomorrow. So Ari still had a chance in hell to get into the Matthewses' good books. Maybe he ate some scorpion peppers and was bleeding from his anus. Poor guy couldn't get off the toilet, but couldn't bear to let me down on my birthday, so he managed to get dressed and drive himself over in a diaper, despite being in insufferable pain. Or maybe he was at the bank withdrawing money for our very expensive champagne dinner and was held up by robbers wearing clown masks and was so traumatized that he... "Valerie?" Ari yelled from the other side of the door 25 years later, and all I could remember was that night in 1990 when I climbed into his father's Mazda 626 after suffering the humiliation of waiting for him in front of my parents, and then him sending me back into the house 5 minutes later. He had decided I wasn't the right girl for him. He needed a girl who put out. He had urges, and apparently I had been too prudish to fulfill his teenage needs. Did I mention it was my 16th birthday? Did I mention the conversation was so short that he still had his burning cigarette in his hand when I got out of the car? I took a look at Ari Klein decades later, and I slammed the door in that motherfucking asshole's face. I started circling around my foyer. Fuck, 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 fuck! The doorbell rang again, and then a knock, and then the doorbell one more time. "Valerie," Ari spoke through my mailbox. "Let me in. Let's talk. I'm not the same prick I was when we were kids." I kept pacing around. Was this some sort of sick joke? Last year, my first swap was Joe, an ex-boyfriend. And now it was Ari? Was Celeste studying my high school yearbooks? The difference was, I knew how to handle guys like this now, thanks to my experience with men like douchebag McMoneybags. I'd had my practice. My nipples were piercing through my sheer t-shirt. I grabbed my suede coat, imprinted with Hallie's handprint from the front closet, and pulled it on. I opened the door a crack and spoke through the narrow opening. The last guy who treated me like shit went home with bruise marks on his wrists and a sore asshole. Ari looked at me, trying his best apologetic charming face. Val, please. His eyebrows were so high on his face, I thought they might float away. Bygones, Val? We were kids. Ari smiled even bigger. Would it help if I told you I didn't lose my virginity until I was 19? I opened the door a little wider. And I drove my dad's Mazda until I was 26? I stared at him. I wanted a better confession. I'm still afraid of horror movies, my hair is thinning in the shape of a horseshoe on top of my head, and my son's 5th grade math is too hard for me, so we had to hire a 15-year-old tutor to help me with his homework. He paused again, looking for some acknowledgement, like a tap dancer at the end of a vaudeville act. He was just missing the jazz hands. I shifted my weight from one foot to another. My hand was on my hip and eyebrow raised, still unconvinced. Come on, Val. This is my first swap. Can you go easy on me? Enter at your own risk. I opened the door, and Ari came inside. Wow, you really put on a tough girl act. I'm actually kind of scared of you. Ari smiled and covered the back of his ass with his hands. His teeth were not as yellow as they should have been, considering the amount of smoking I remembered him doing. Act? I scoffed. For swap club, huh? You seem way too relaxed. Ari's smile erased from his face. No one knows how to play cool better than I do. Right, Val? Yep. That I knew all too well. I had to give him a shot. I guess your wife doesn't put out as much as you would like? Ari laughed quietly. Put out? Did I use those words? You sure did, Ari. I was trying not to sound like he'd made such an impression on me, but it was clear that even all these years later, I was a grudge holder. Was I really going to let Ari have sex with me? After what he did to me? Even after the days and days of my mom giving me grief for this total ass-fucks move on my birthday? The chagrin I stomached at my sweet 16 when everyone was asking me where Ari was? The fact I was even in a situation where I could deny this numb dick my beautifully coiffed vagina, and I was contemplating granting him entry, made me mad at myself all over again. I could hear my mother's voice. Are you kidding me, Valerie? After all that, you're going to forgive him and fornicate with Ari Klein? Maybe I'd just fuck his face a little. Even I, Valerie Matthews, wasn't going to forgo a potentially good anger sex because of a grudge my mother was holding. Drink? Punch in the face? I let myself half smile. I remember you had a good sense of humor. Glad to see you still got one. Ari followed me into the living room. Yes, the more often used than not living room, ever since I began Swap Club. Are you going to take off your coat? Ari was looking at me with a peculiar look on his face, trying to contemplate why I was the one in a coat. I had to swerve back into the lane about my sense of humor. Yes, I'm still funny, even after all the heartache and letdown in my life that I've had to endure from cold, heartless people like you. I still know how to crack a good joke. I half smiled again, but this time Ari wasn't smiling at all. It looks like there's an overdue apology I owe you. Ari came closer to me. I didn't mind the scent of his cologne, and it smelled better than the cigarette smoke cloud I last smelled on him. It's okay, Ari. I locked eyes with him. I could still see the 16-year-old in those eyes. I could still feel the 16-year-old in me, the one whose heart was still recovering after all these years, and I didn't even know it. I had filed Ari Klein away in the part of my brain that I never thought I could retrieve again. Actually, apparently, I'm not okay. But I have an idea. I cleared the pillows off my couch and pushed my infamous imported Indian coffee table to the side. I led Ari to the couch, seating him on the left, and stood next to the couch. "Can I come in?" I asked Ari, as he looked at me, intrigued. "Can you come in?" Ari asked curiously. Clearly, he wasn't in, and I wasn't out of anything. "Your car." I pointed to the couch. "Can I come in?" Ari realized what I was doing and obliged. Yes, Val, get in." I was just about to get in the car, but then Ari jumped up and ran around the coffee table. "Hold on, let me get that for you." Ari opened the door to the car, and I got in. Then he ran around to the other side and faked polishing the mirror and checking himself. "Still look good," Ari smiled and said as he sat on the couch next to me. "So, where are we going?" I asked as I gazed out the windshield. "Well, Val, it is your sweet 16th birthday. So I was thinking a nice dinner at that Italian place you like, and then we could park at the mountain with some hot chocolate and listen to music. What do you think?" I had a huge smile on my face, and I leaned in closer to Ari and we instantly began to kiss. I could feel butterflies fly through my belly and up my windpipe, causing me to almost lose my breath. His kisses were much better than his former teenage self, slow and thoughtful. His hand found the back of my head, and the other wound around my waist, pulling me in closer. My ego's crown prosecutor had objected 10 minutes ago, but my hormones, represented by opposing counsel, overruled. No contest. Valerie Matthews was finally going to put out for Ari Klein. We kissed for a while, but when I became keen on moving things along, I took off my coat, exposing my see-through t-shirt. Ari looked at my breasts. "No wonder you were cold." I took him by the hand and led him upstairs. We continued to kiss between the stages of removal of his light knit sweater. I tossed it to the side, all while maintaining perfect synchronicity with our lips. It was a dance, a choreography of our bodies and hands moving together, clothes falling to the floor, and our mouths never missed a beat. Ari had a classic Jason Bateman dad body. 2 abs, 3 if he held his breath, arms slightly lacking definition, and a little more hair on the neck than I would typically allow for. I didn't see them as shortcomings. Ari's imperfections weren't offensive to me. His flaws made me more comfortable in my own skin with him. We reclined on my bed, still in perfect sync with each other despite my fixation on his oddly thick earlobes. I was examining them a little too closely when I noticed a skin tag on his neck. "Can I take off your pants?" Ari asked as his hand fell on my zipper. I nodded and lifted my ass up to help him ease them off. The feeling of his warm skin on mine felt nice. It felt relaxed. Ari rolled on top of me and began kissing my throat down towards my chest. My nipples darting out, I twitched and twisted as he pulled one into his moist lips and kissed it with the same eagerness as he did my mouth. I could feel his stiffness pressing against me. His mouth moved down my stomach toward my belly button, and then